In the last video we learned about the possible meaning behind the serpent as found in the book of Genesis. We discussed that the serpent represents deception. It deceives by altering what God has said. However, it is also depicted to represent wisdom in the New Testament. In the New Testament, Christians are commanded to be as wise as a serpent and harmless as a dove. We will further examine other texts that addresses the topic of the serpent. In Exodus chapter 4 verses 1-3 it reads, "And Moses answered and said, But, behold, they will not believe me, nor hearken unto my voice. For they will say, The Lord hath not appeared unto thee. And the Lord said unto him, What is that in thine hand? And he said, A rod. And he said, Cast it on the ground. And he cast it on the ground, and it became a serpent, and Moses fled from before it." This was the first sign that God gave to Moses to present to the Israelites to prove that God had sent him if they did not believe him. The first battle is a battle of belief, believe. The word for believe in the passage is aman. It means to build up or support, to foster as a parent or nurse, to be firm or faithful, to trust or believe, to be true or certain. The first sign God gave Moses to prove that his message to the Israelites is true was to turn the rod into a serpent. The word for rod here is mate, which means a branch, a tribe, a rod, for correction, a ruling scepter, throwing a lance, or a staff, support of life. The word for serpent in this same passage is nachash, which is the same word used in Genesis for the serpent that spoke to Eve. So a good question here is, why is the first sign God gives Moses to prove that God had sent him that of a serpent? Before this, all we see the serpent do is to deceive Eve into eating the fruit. But now we see God using the serpent as a sign to the Israelites. What could be really happening in this verse? Let's try to analyze and break it down further. Moses tells God, "If I go to the Israelites as I am now, they will not believe that you sent me." God's direct response was, "What is that in your hand?" The word for hand is yad, which also means power. Moses replies a mate, which means rod, staff, or figuratively a support of life. The rod or staff seems to represent a guiding tool. God then asks Moses to throw this rod on the ground, and it immediately turns into a serpent, nachash, same one as in the garden. Then God asks Moses to pick up the serpent by the tail, and when Moses grabs the tail it turns back into a rod. The rod here could be a representation of the belief system you utilize as your guiding tool or life support throughout your life. The rod Moses cast down originally came from him. Only by casting it down is he able to see what it really is. However, when a belief system, picked up by the command of God, becomes a true support of life. To pick up a serpent by the tail requires faith in God, because only God turned that serpent into a staff. The laying down of the staff may also represent the things which we have believed to be true and held on as support our whole lives may actually be a serpent in disguise. Until we lay them down before the Lord, then will our eyes open to see it for what it truly is. Only God can transform that serpent back into something useful to us. The presence of the serpent brings you to the crossroads of truth. Here you are given the opportunity to choose to live by faith and not by sight, or to choose to live by sight alone. Moses chose faith. He had to trust God in order to find the courage to pick up this serpent by the tail. Whereas Eve chose sight, she saw that it was good for food and ate it. Moses had to make a choice to yield to whatever God said, which was clearly opposite to what he saw at the moment. The transformation of rod to serpent and serpent to rod is only done by God. Therefore, this passage highlights that truth is only that which comes out of the mouth of God. Therefore, anything you hold as true that did not come from God's mouth is a serpent in disguise. Let us be cautious in what we decide to believe as truth, to avoid carrying serpents that look like rods. Read and study the verse on your own and leave a comment below as to what insights you get from it. Thanks for watching.